Hello everyone, Charcoal here, and at long last, welcome back to the Wings of Fire Character Spotlight, the series where I pick apart our favorite characters and see just what makes them tick. And then I'll be giving them a rating from A to F. F is terrible, D is bad, C is okay, B is good, A is great, and S tier is borderline perfect. Today, the spotlight will shine on Kinkajou. This young RainWing made her debut in Book 3, The Hidden Kingdom, and remained relevant all the way to Book 10, until she met the same fate as most characters from the first two arcs and basically disappeared. But who exactly is Kinkajou, and what are my thoughts on her? Let's take a look. Like I said, Kinkajou made her debut in Book 3 as the youngest of the 17 RainWings who were kidnapped by the Nightwings and taken to their volcanic island. She was looked down upon by her teachers, and she was so weak with her venom that the Nightwings didn't even bother giving her a muzzle, allowing her to introduce herself to Glory. She helped Glory escape by disguising herself as a Nightwing Dragonet until Clay and Deathbringer showed up to get her and Glory out of there. When Glory declared a royal challenge, she selected Kinkajou to participate in the venom shooting contest against Queen Grandeur, where she proved to be much more skilled than her teachers made her out to be. When a sloth fell in front of the target, Kinkajou tried to move it but ended up taking a venom shot from Grandeur to her wing. Glory used her own venom to neutralize it and save her, but Kinkajou would still be left with a nasty scar. Kinkajou spent the rest of the first arc recovering from her injury, but she would get a much greater role in the second arc. In Book 6, Kinkajou was selected to be the RainWing of the Jade Winglet at Jade Mountain Academy, sharing a room with Moonwatcher. She was hesitant at first, for the obvious reason giving her history with Nightwings, but she warmed up to Moon soon enough. And Moon would actually save Kinkajou's life by keeping her out of the history cave right before the bombing. When word got out that Moon could read minds, Kinkajou was angry at first but forgave Moon once she calmed down. At the end of the book, she left the academy with the rest of who remained of the Jade Winglet to find Queen Scarlet and rescue Winter's brother, Hailstorm. In Book 7, however, the group came under attack by Scarlet's ally, Chameleon, in his Nightwing form Shapeshifter. Kinkajou took an extremely hard hit from him and was knocked into a coma, and she would spend the rest of Book 7 and the entirety of Book 8 in a hospital bed in Possibility. Come Book 9, she was moved back to the rainforest and finally got to do stuff again. By this point, Darkstalker was awake and needed stopping. When Turtle and Anemone finally healed Kinkajou, Turtle added a spell that made Darkstalker think Kinkajou was completely insignificant, and Anemone added a spell to make Kinkajou develop a crush on Turtle as much as he did her. Kinkajou joined Turtle in spying on Darkstalker as he returned to the old Night Kingdom, but her big moment came when she was summoned to his throne room and actually melted his eye with venom. Definitely the first and probably the only badass thing she's ever done. In Book 10, she stuck around in the Night Kingdom and helped Qibli get the scraps of Darkstalker's scroll from Chameleon. She later wrote a spell using the scraps to enchant a strawberry that Darkstalker's mother Foeslayer tricked him into eating, which turned him into the baby Nightwing RainWing hybrid Peacemaker, and technically made Kinkajou the hero of the second arc. In the epilogue, she talked with Turtle about the love spell Anemone put on her, and she said she did love him but wanted to take some time to make sure those feelings were hers and not magic. And that was where Kinkajou's run ended. Book 11 started fresh with a brand new continent and mostly brand new characters, with a very small selection of returning ones sprinkled in later. Kinkajou didn't make the cut, so in Arc 3 she has zero presence whatsoever. She is simply not in it. Whether or not she'll have a role in Arc 4 remains to be seen, so for now, Kinkajou's story ends at Book 10. Kinkajou is a very young character, and with that distinction, she is naturally very immature and, we'll say, volatile. But her defining trait is, without a doubt, her unwavering, bubbly optimism. No matter the situation, she'll always find a way to look on the bright side. But that doesn't stop her from being vicious once in a while. She does not take shit from anybody and will gladly lay down her own life to protect her friends. That's one thing about her I definitely appreciate. She has some bite to match all her bark, and she does arguably fill an important role in the Jade Winglet. Between the walking anxiety attack, the grouchy emo asshole, the socially awkward puddle, and the jokester who's just hiding the fact that he's terrified, there's a lot of negativity floating around. So Kinkajou's lighthearted banter provides a minor but necessary morale boost for the rest of the group. The problem is that the comic relief character only works if you strike the right balance, and Kinkajou doesn't in my opinion. I get she's the one optimist in a sea of pessimism, but you only really need her in small doses. Winter and Qibli already provide plenty of funny moments on their own without the need for Kinkajou, but in every scene she's in, she just doesn't shut up. She goes from cute to annoying very fast, and while you kinda need someone like her to break up the seriousness sometimes, like I said, Qibli already fills that role perfectly while also having way more going on than haha funny jokes. Kinkajou has her moments, don't get me wrong. Melting Darkstalker's eyeball was awesome, and I really like that she showed some maturity with figuring out how she feels about Turtle. But she very rarely, if ever, has any sort of emotional stake in what's going on, which leads to her feeling rather flat. Her getting the jump on Chameleon works because Chameleon was the one who put her out of action for 2 books, so she's getting some revenge. Getting what was basically the kill on Darkstalker in book 10 does not work for several reasons unrelated to Kinkajou, but also because she had done basically nothing for the entire arc before that. You know who would have deserved that honor more? Maybe Moonwatcher, who had Darkstalker's voice stuck in her head for days and was his closest friend in the modern day. Or Turtle, who could get some redemption for failing to stop him once before while also bearing a striking resemblance to the guy who stopped him the first time. Or Qibli, who had just had a super interesting dialogue with Darkstalker and is also the protagonist of the fucking book. So many other characters had a better narrative reason for being the one to do it. What's Kinkajou's reason? Because she hadn't done anything, so if she wasn't the one, she would have just been nothing but comic relief the entire time and thus had no reason to be there at all. But could she have done something? Let's look at the question everyone has been asking for ages: does Kinkajou deserve her own book? And my answer is absolutely not. A story in Wings of Fire, or really any story in general, has 2 conflicts, internal and external. The external conflict would be stopping the bad guy. The internal conflict comes from the emotions the protagonist feels and how they have to grow and change to defeat the bad guy. All of the Arc 2 protagonists have an internal conflict that they have to work through. Moon is anxious, Winter is an asshole with a family that doesn't care about him. Peril was raised a killer and doesn't want to be that anymore. Turtle fears what people will think of him once they know he has magic. And Qibli has a whole bunch of fun childhood trauma to explore. The internal conflict is what makes the protagonist, and therefore the story, interesting and relatable. Kinkajou doesn't have any internal conflict. Sure, other dragons find her very annoying, but it's established she doesn't really care about that, so there's no story there. And given this arc's main villains, the other protagonists were just better choices because of their connections. Moon was the only one who could talk to Darkstalker prior to his release. Winter had a reason to hate Darkstalker because of the history between their tribes, and a reason to hunt down Scarlet because she imprisoned his brother. Peril had a reason to face Scarlet because she was the reason Peril is so mentally broken. Turtle was the only one in a position to do anything substantial against Darkstalker, and he happened to resemble Fathom from Darkstalker's past. Qibli doesn't really have a connection to Darkstalker at first, but he realizes his thought process is so similar to Darkstalker that he's basically one bad decision away from becoming him. Maybe, just maybe, a Kinkajou book would have made her defeating Darkstalker feel more earned, but Kinkajou's only stake in any of these battles is that her friends might get hurt. That's it. And the Nightwings who tortured her have already been dealt with, so she has no one to fight. There's nothing for her to do, no interesting way for her to change, and I already said she gets very annoying very easily, so an entire book of nothing but Kinkajou is not something I'd want to read. She will hopefully forever remain an unofficial protagonist. But despite all of that, I don't hate Kinkajou. Her optimism makes her hard to dislike, and she's definitely a better comic relief than, say, Swordtail, because she actually has a good head on her shoulders and has some good moments. She's not a bumbling idiot who causes trouble for the rest of the group just by existing. She's really nice in her small role in the first arc, but in the second arc she feels overused for what her role is, and her placement in that arc's story feels very awkward. I'm gonna give Kinkajou a flat C. And that's all for now. It was fun revisiting this series again. I'm not sure if or when I'll end up doing another one, but if you have a character you want me to talk about, feel free to drop ideas in the comments. Thank you for visiting Charcoal's Den, and I'll see you all in the next video. Special thanks to my supporters on Patreon. If you want to support the channel, you can pledge at the link in the description for perks such as your name in the credits and early access to new videos.